Questions for Ben?
Ben, wanted to ask you about a lot of your placements. I think I remember you talking about them being fairly aggressive. I know it's not blanket across the board, but do you sort of have that same philosophy that it's if guys are ready, it's okay to be aggressive pushing them in terms of promotions?
Yeah, sure. I think it's that thing where you wanna get the player at the point where, if you're talking about minor league placements, where they're challenged, where they're the game is challenging them, where they can compete and succeed but not dominate, but also not be overwhelmed. And so it's that sweet spot. So hopefully more often than not we find the right place. And then once a player's there, then there would be a series of things that we'd want to see, one of which is just time, and a big enough sample, before we consider a move either up or down. Hopefully more often it's up than down.
Ben, is that part uniform? Like, is that like the time aspect? Is that variable based on player? Or is that a thing where, like, we've talked about before, like at the beginning of the season, you say, like, I got to wait a certain time. I can't be hasty with this,
It is variable, but I think in every case you'd want to have a big enough, long enough sample. A player can get on a streak for 3 weeks in either direction, and things can look either really rosy or not rosy. Over 12 weeks, you're probably going to start to get it's probably going to start to even out, and you get a little better sense of where a guy is. But that's just one aspect, and then we're still looking at things off the field, work ethic, teammate, attention to their practice, how the skill, whatever their priority is, how that's coming along. So there's a number of factors, and then opportunity too. So we have to space. There's a spacing issue sometimes with guys, just to make sure that there's enough opportunity to play. So it all comes together. But I think the one thing we did talk about coming into this year that maybe was a little different was, because we didn't have a season last year, if anything, maybe falling on the side of waiting a little bit longer. While we thought we were relatively aggressive with placements to begin with, but then maybe waiting a little bit longer, because this is the first time we've gotten a chance to see him play, in a long time. We'd like to get enough of a sample. But, we're getting, I don't know how close we are to midpoint with the minor league seasons. We're getting a little bit closer. So once we get towards that midpoint is probably roughly when maybe we'd start to look at that a little bit more closely.
Ben, given that you didn't have a minor league season last year, and you've had several top 10 prospects get injured, some of them more serious than others, how frustrating has that been to lose like a Travis Swaggerty for the season, or even Nick Gonzalez or a couple other guys for, a little shorter extended periods?
Yeah, I mean, you never want to lose guys. In Swaggerty's case, obviously it's a longer term. He's going to recover, we believe that, but he's going to miss a lot of the season. Gonzalez should be back before too long. So most of them have been traumatic, acute injuries on the field, and things that guys will recover from. So it's a setback, but there's going to be injuries every year, minor league, major league. We can't avoid them. We're not even necessarily looking to completely avoid them. And if we have, we want to obviously take care of guys as best we possibly can. Again, the overused soft tissue injuries are the ones we focus on more, and how we can continue to get better at preventing those, managing those. But injuries are part of the game, and it's partly why we need a ton of talent, to make up for, because you are going to have some injuries.
And speaking of top prospect injuries, I wanted to check in on Miguel Yajure, because I believe Todd told us last week that in the next 7 to 10 days he should begin throwing, and that's about that point. So what's his status right now, and how's he recovering?
Yeah, he's doing well. He's in Florida. He's symptom free. And I know he started to do plyo ball work, and I would expect the throwing will happen very soon. He's on track, again, based on what Todd's last update, and we're just going to have to build him back up now, and probably have some sort of there'll be some sort of progression with his throwing and back to mound and then back into games, but he's doing fine.
Ben, we've seen a few instances at the major league level where starting pitchers taken out after 4, 5, 6 innings. I think Cole last night was 77 pitches. How much of that is tied into just trying to spread out and keep the innings down over the course of the whole season? And is any of it tied into the fact that we're past the 60 game mark, correlating to last year, and maybe there's uncertainty how guys will respond from this point in the season?
I think there's a number of factors, but I think the biggest one still is we're going into games, and Shelty and the staff spent a lot of time on this. They're going into games looking at what matchups they want to create, or what matchups that they think are best for us in that particular game, and that obviously includes relievers. So you know what relievers you have available to you on a given night, and you're looking at the opposing lineup and looking for situations and parts of the lineup that where you want to create those matchups with your bullpen. But it includes the starter too. That's how we would think about it. That's how Shelty and the staff would think about it. Where do we maybe not want the starter to get to in terms of the matchup? And that's going to be different in every case, but so we're going in every game with the biggest factor is just what gives us the best chance to win this game. How do we get 27 outs as quickly as we can? And we want the starters to have their pedal to the floor, so to speak. It's always going to be a little bit different for a starter than a reliever in terms of intensity. I'm not suggesting it's exactly the same, but we want our starters to go out there and put the throttle down and get as many outs as they can, and then hand it off to the next guy. And we have faith. We have faith in our bullpen. So I think that's the way Shelty and the staff are approaching it. But again, the biggest thing is we have information that helps us determine where we think those spots are in the game, where we either would want to see a certain guy or a different guy in there, and they're using that. It's mostly that. It's not, yes, we are tracking overall workload for the season, and we're aware of that and want to be certainly thoughtful about that and careful with that. But that's not driving in-game decisions.
Kind of tied in with that, if I can follow, is that same kind of plan in place at, say, Indianapolis as well? Especially since, we've known since the start of the season, there's going to be a lot of fluidity there. Guys brought up, spot starts, filling in the bullpen, that kind of thing. Are you taking that same approach there?
It's a little different because, still want to be mindful of the volume there, obviously. And I do think in AAA, we want to play it. We want to play those games to win. I think that's important. That AAA baseball is where there's some correlation to how we'd manage the game at the major league level. The difference is that we do really need to make sure that in AAA, we need to make sure that certain guys are touching the mound regularly and getting regular work. And so there might be guys who are kind of almost prescribed to getting in a game sometimes, and that's going to impact, Espo's decision making. So it's not going to look exactly the same. And then there may be development things that are going on in Indy too that come into play. So it's not exactly the same. But we do want to, we want to manage those games to try to win too.
Speaking of guys you want to have touch the mound.
I'm sorry.
Speaking of guys you want to have touch the mound in AAA, what was the conversation like with Mitch Keller? How did that decision come to plan? And what is the plan for him in AAA? What do you want to see from him before you bring him back to the major?
Yeah. I guess we just got to a point where we felt like here's a really talented young guy who's working hard and we believe in, and really was working on, has been, we believe, working on the things that are going to be helpful to him in the long run between starts while he was in the big leagues. But the execution in games was inconsistent, obviously, as we all saw. And there were times where it looked good and times where it didn't look as good. And we wanted to give it as much time as we could coming into the season. And I guess there was no magic date or anything. We just got to a point where we felt like, let's change the environment. And because I think, the things that really at the end of the day, like the most important thing that he's just gotta, it's just execute, it's execution. And you don't have to be perfect with every pitch if you're him, because his stuff's really good, but a little bit more consistent execution. And then back up from that, we just really want him to be totally committed to every pitch, full confidence and commitment to every pitch. Now that's easier said than done. You have to back up from that and start to think about, like, well, what is the work required to be able to have that level of commitment to every pitch? And he's been doing that work, and we just got to a point where we felt like, maybe in a different environment in AAA, there'd be an opportunity for him to take that work into games, hopefully see some success and get some confidence from that, and then build from there. And I happened to be in Indy earlier this week. That was completely coincidental, but I happened to be there, and so I did get a chance to spend some time with him. I really believe he's in a good spot, and he's committed. He wants to be good. He wants to be back in the big leagues, but he knows he has some work to do to do that. And we'll help him in any way we can.
Ben, coming out of
Ben, wanted to circle back to the promotion thing real quick, if we could, and ask specifically about O'Neill Cruz. How do you look at him? Like, I'd love to know, like, how close you think he is. I don't know if you're willing to say something like that, but also just, his offense looks really good and consistent. And I know the error total is what it is. I also know he's putting in a lot of work. Like, will you promote a guy if the offense is good, but maybe the defense isn't? And just, sum total on Cruz, where's he at?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna always be lots of things coming together, and I wouldn't even isolate it to offense and defense, and for every player that conversation is going to be a little bit different in terms of, like, what would be the handful of things that we'd really want to see or need to see before making a consideration. Again, as I said before, I think generally we did coming into the season want to see, just maybe a little bit bigger sample. That's not specific to Cruz, but it includes Cruz, just given that we missed a lot of time last year. So, I think he's got, I don't know, he's probably approaching like 300 plate appearances in AA now between 2019 and this year. So, approaching 300 plate appearances above A ball, still not a lot. He's doing well. We're really encouraged with, the work he's doing, how engaged he is. I know I've talked to before, I do expect we're going to see him move around the field a little bit. That's probably something we'd want to see done in AA, in where he's at now. He's got a really good relationship with the staff there. Miguel Perez, does a great job and has developed a good connection with him. And so we'll see. We like where he's at. He's doing his part. And when young players do their part and do well and do it consistently enough for long enough, then obviously that's good, and we'll want to move them up. I don't have any. We haven't talked about any sort of specific time frame on that with O'Neill, but we're very encouraged with what he's doing.
When you say move around, is that going to be just like in the outfield, like we saw in spring training? Is it potentially different infield spots? And this isn't specific just to O'Neill, but organizational need, how much does that play into a factor for maybe moving a player to a different position?
Yeah, I think it'll probably be mostly the outfield I know John Baker and Sean Bowman, Jamie Carroll, our defensive coordinator, are all working together with the staff in AA to work through that. We do want to see him continue to play shortstop for sure. That's going to continue to be a part of it. So that'll be the infield will remain a part of it for sure. I would expect the outfield will come into play. Yeah, I mean, when guys get to the upper levels, then there's part of moving around the field, I think, is just an obligation to help them be prepared for the major leagues. And I think we almost owe it to players to, give them a chance to do that so that they kind of have those tools in their belt, so to speak, in case that comes up. And then, yeah, when you get to the upper levels, yes, need does start to come into play. And if a guy's doing really well in all facets of the game and there's opportunity at a certain position, we want that player to be able to take advantage of it. So when we can, we try to create that versatility.
And we're well in the calendar year, like beyond where every other draft has been for a while now. I just kind of wonder what is sort of different on June 19th compared to other years that you guys are still doing, or things that you've had sort of figured out by now. And I also was wondering if you had any more information about the organization's involvement in that draft, the combine.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we have the extra month. I think it's really important, obviously, for us this draft, and I don't mind having the extra month, more time to prepare. It's really important. So we're basically doing all the same things we would normally do. Now that seasons are winding down, it's opening up the chance for us to connect back directly with players. Usually that kind of goes on hold once the season starts, high school or college. Kind of let them play their season. We have one-on-one contact maybe before the season, and then you kind of let them play. Now the seasons are ending, we kind of can start to do that again. So we have started to do that, and as more seasons end, we'll do more of that, and that's important. And just trying to learn as much as we possibly can, and we're going to start our meetings here at the end of the month, not too long from now, 10 days or so. So we want to go into those with as much information as we can.
Now, obviously,
I realize
1-1 is a different animal, but obviously 1-1's a different animal. But what's sort of different about staying in touch with multiple players when you have your pick of who to stay in touch with? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like where you're picking 7th and you want to stay in touch with 10 guys, because you don't know who's going to fall where.
I think this year it's not that different. We have you usually have some handful, some number of players, no matter where you're picking, that you're either considering or you think might have a chance to be there. And in this year, yes, we're 1-1, but it's really the same. It's kind of the same thing. Yes, it'll ultimately be our choice, but there's still a number of players that we're considering and bearing down on. So it doesn't really feel that different from that standpoint. And so we're just trying to still learn as much as we can. And there's good players in this draft, a lot of good players in this draft. We got to make a good selection. We'd like to make 21 good selections, and they're all important. And 1-1's obviously important.
And I realize you guys are looking more big picture right now, where you are as an organization. But as a competitive person, as somebody that's been in baseball for a while, how tough is that for you as a GM to see what happened here in the last week where you lose 10 games in a row? How hard is that on you when the losses start to pile up?
Well, it's hard. I think it's always hard. This is, no matter where you are or what the team is, I think it's always harder the closer you are to the field, And in our case in baseball, that's going to be the guys in uniform, players and staff. They're the ones pouring everything they have into every day, into the preparation, into the practice, into the game prep, into the game itself. And then they're just dissecting the game, after every day. And yes, I'm a part of that. I have some visibility to that. I have conversations, and of course I want us to do well. But I'm not quite as close to it. And, oh, by the way, I can also make a trip to Indy, and I can go to affiliates, and I can spend time on the draft, and I can spend time on other areas of baseball operations, many of which, we're really encouraged by the progress that's happening. And so what I try to do just help our staff, help our major league staff and players, help support that group, because they are working so hard. They're working every day to get better. We knew that there was going to be challenges this year. Sure enough, there have been. Very encouraged by generally what's happening in baseball operations and the organization. Doesn't make major league losses any easier, and particularly for those guys that are closest to them every day.
I wanted to ask, you said before in regards to like trades and stuff like that. I know we've asked you about it a ton, that you keep the phone on, there's never a time to, stop listening or stop, keeping it in the back of your mind. Have you seen those calls pick up? Like, has conversations started to pick up at this point, or is it still a little too early to think, too hard about the deadline?
It feels like it has picked up a little bit. I guess we're at a normal, I shouldn't say normal. In the old days, so to speak, the draft would have been kind of over by now, and that's usually when those calls pick up. So maybe makes sense that they're starting to pick up. It's basically the same time, even though we haven't had the draft yet. I'm not very good at, I've never been very good at predicting, when the conversations turn to traction. I'm just not good at it. So I don't know if that's 24 hours or a week or 6 weeks. I really don't know. But it does seem like there's been more phone calls over the last week or 10 days.
Last year, you said that pretty much there was nobody untouchable in the organization before the trade deadline, even though you didn't make, I don't think, many trades at the deadline itself. Has that changed at all? Is there anybody that you feel is untouchable or that you want to protect?
Generally, we would not use that, term. I think obviously there are going to be players that we value extremely highly and have, see as a big part of our future. And, I think you want to keep the phone on, and that doesn't mean that you're actively, marketing certain, players. We're responding to interest, and in some cases it just doesn't go very far, and in other cases it might, and we'll see where this goes. We need to continue to be focused as we have been on acquiring talent. We need to build as much talent as we possibly can, and there's different ways to do that, and trades are one of them. So we'll see what comes our way over the next several weeks.
And in some of your earlier trades, a lot of the pickup was lower level A-ball guys. Is that still, I don't want to say a priority, but is that still a track maybe that you're drifting along, or does that focus change a little bit, or is that, I guess, maybe does it depend trade to trade, offer to offer?
I think it's just going to depend. In the conversations we've had recently and already, like during the season, we're talking about players at all levels, major league down to, rookie ball. So there's no particular level of player we're focused on or targeting. We just want to find the best players we can. And if we can access players that, we think help us toward where we want to go, then that's something we're interested in. And they could be at any level.
And you talked after, I think it was the Musgrove trade, maybe the Bell trade, maybe both, about years of control with those guys mattering. Is that something does that hold true now? Will that hold true next year? Like, is just that something you're always sort of like having to balance? I have a year of control versus not. That's a good thing. I mean, how much do those matter?
It does matter a lot. And then, it matters to other teams too. So I think every team that's going to be an important input for every team. And when we have players who we feel like realistically can, be part of this thing that we're building, and we have the time to do that, then we're going to value those players really highly, whether they're here or whether they're, in another organization.
Just a couple more for Ben.
Ben, I think Rob's question kind of, I don't know, brought this to mind. I think when people from the outside look at trades and like try to find sort of themes in what you guys are getting in return, they think of it as like sort of an acknowledgement of a window when you're trying to compete down the future. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you have that in mind? Does that come into your mind of like, okay, we have this guy that we want to be here with, whoever in 2025 or anything like that? Or is that really not part of the equation?
Probably not much of a part of the conversation. It's really hard. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the draft or international scouting or trades, kind of wherever you're looking for players. It's hard. It's hard to evaluate accurately. We spend a ton of time on that. We work as hard as we can to be, and we want to continuously get better at it. We're constantly kind of stressing the process and how do we get better at this? How do we get better at this? But it's really hard. I think we just want to continue to try to find the players we believe in the most, and believe that if we have enough of them, then that'll come together. And whatever adjustments we need to make over time to kind of make the team work, we'll be able to do that.
And just sort of going back to Mitch for a second, the stuff with Cole Tucker and Bradenton sort of comes to mind when it comes to this sort of like almost reset with a player. Is there anything in that you want to change with what I know you call body movement a lot? Like, is there any of these new techniques that you guys have sort of, with Baker just developed in Bradenton that you might want to apply that you are trying to apply rather to some of these guys at the upper levels and maybe Mitch Keller in particular?
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff was being applied while he was still in the major leagues. As far as the some of the activities he was doing to put himself in the best position to execute. Ultimately, you sort of start with what the outcome is you're looking for, and that's to execute the pitch, and then work backward from that and what is necessary to be able to do that. And there's a lot that goes into that for a pitcher. And I don't want to get into all the details of what Mitch's plan will be. But ultimately he's working to just be able to execute more consistently. I think, again, as I said before, like full commitment to the pitch would be a part of that, but there's a lot of other things to that. Moving well on the mound is part of it. And there's all kinds of stuff that he was already doing, and the major leagues will continue to do while he's in Indy. But the outcome goal is just execute more consistently, because when he does, he can be successful because his stuff's good.
Last one for Ben.
Ben, just to clarify that part about the full commitment that you just mentioned, are you talking full commitment in terms of the buy-in and believing in the pitch, or are you talking about the consistent execution of the pitch when you talk about full commitment?
Well, I think the execution comes from all those things happening, right? Like, it comes from the work you do between starts, the moving well on the mound, having clarity about what you're trying to do. And that's going to be, that's something that every pitcher is working on. So I don't think this is like anything specific to Mitch. Every pitcher is working towards having that level of confidence and commitment towards every pitch. And generally the execution gets better as you get, as you develop that. And he's been just really engaged, receptive, all in. And we believe he's gonna get better. He's gonna be a really good major league pitcher. He's So like so many others, so many guys who have gone through this kind of, you get to the big leagues, you're really talented, you get to the big leagues, you hit a little adversity, and you have to respond to that adversity and figure some things out, and then you do, and you come back and you succeed. And we believe he's going to do that, and not unlike a lot of other guys have.
I asked Shelty this earlier the week. You weren't here, neither was he. You guys aren't responsible for what happened with Tyler Glass now, but does that as an organizational thing become kind of a guiding light for you, is to make sure that when you have that type of talent, or a player or pitcher in particular that you believe has that type of talent, that you cultivate it before you give up on it too soon?
Well, we are striving to build a culture throughout the Pirates, Major League down to the Dominican Academy, where we are, not only have our full energy towards helping players in every way we can, every day, every hour, and never give up on that, but that we are also, as part of that, searching for all the best possible tools to do that, whether those are coaching techniques or other tools. And so that has nothing to do with who or who has not been here in the past. It just has everything to do with, we know we need to be really good at that to succeed. And being really good at that is not a, light bulb that you turn on, because you want to, it's a lot of time, a lot of reps, a lot of conversations, a lot of searching, a lot of, trying something and then adjusting again. But on top of all that, there is a mindset that we need to create, where it's, that we believe we can help everybody improve, and that we're totally focused on that all the time.
All right, guys, I think we're good with Ben. We're going to keep this live, and we'll about 15 minutes be back with Shelty.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks,
Ben.
everybody.
All right, gentlemen, we are back with Derek Shelton. And we are good to go.
Shelty, was the clubhouse a little looser after, shutting that losing streak today?
Yeah, there was. Are you talking about this morning or last night?
This morning.
Yeah, this morning they're still arriving, because we've been banged on the field because of weather. But yeah, I would say there was definitely a lot more air in the room last night than there was previous nights.
Shelty, I just want to let you know that the tarp just blew out from under its weights with the wind and is now scattered all over the field. So I just thought you should know that.
Seriously?
Yeah, I've never seen that before, but the wind blew the weights like across with it and like flipped over, and now they're trying
Really?
to. Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Just some color for you,
I like the intake there, Mikey.
Reporting, it's part of the job.
On the spot reporting during a Zoom. Love it.
Mike doesn't have any questions. He just wanted to show off.
He's just excited when his internet works consistently, that he likes to be able to go.
Shelty, what have you seen from Brian Reynolds in the month of June that it just kind of seems like he's taken it to another level? You knew last year that he went through struggles. You kind of pronounced that confidence in him that he was a hitter and he'd bounce back, but it seems like he's gone to a different level in June.
Yeah, the thing that really stands out to me are his contact points. It looks like he's getting the ball in front of the plate on a more consistent basis. I think at times last year the ball beat him, whether it was because of timing or the contact point, but he's in a better position to hit, and his contact points are farther out, and that's why you see him drive the ball.
Derek, how do you communicate a way to sort of help Will Crowe sort of build off what was easily the best start of his career at this level, and help him sort of tap into something that might be consistent for him?
Well, I think the execution and the attack plan of it is the big part of it. The times that we've seen him struggle is when he hasn't gone or stayed in attack mode throughout the game. And something that's really big for not just him, but for all of our starters is they have to continue to go every single pitch and focus on, each pitch, how it's going to go, and not the length of how they're going to go. And that's really important. I think with young pitchers at times, they worry about the end of the game before they worry about the beginning of the game. And I think he did a nice job of it the last time out.
Shelty, is that easy? Because I would imagine, I don't know, when I was pitching, if you would have took me out over 71 pitches, I would have been angry. But is that just a conversation that you've grown to have with guys?
Yeah, you have to grow to have that. And I think, the one part about it is you get to go farther in games if you're more efficient, and you get to go farther in games if you execute. Let's use Chase's game the other day. He threw 71. He empties the tank, gets out of the fourth with it being a 1-run game. If you're thinking I'm going to conserve for the 5th or the 6th, you're not pitching in the 5th or the 6th because you probably gave up those runs in the 4th. And what we want our young pitchers especially to think about is the fact that we're focusing on every single pitch. And I think young pitchers at times get to the point where they're focused on getting into the 5th or the 6th and not worrying about the individual pitch, and then they end up giving up more runs. I think it's something that Tyler Anderson has learned. He gave up 5 the other day in the first, gave up 1 hard hit ball and gave us 6 innings. With a lot of young pitchers, they start to focus on, okay, I've given up 5. I'm going to try to make that back up. And then they don't end up executing pitches. And that's something that, to your point, Jason, is very true. It's something that's learned. And, we learn that and try to teach that by, number one, monitoring innings. And then more so the conversation of execution of single pitches.
Is that tougher for you as a manager, taking a guy out after, 4 or 5 really good short innings? Because, if you look at the box score, you're never going to know if you took a guy out too early, just if you left him out there too long.
100%. And there's a lot to go. There's a lot that goes in that on a nightly basis, depending on, what your bullpen availability is, what the matchup is, things that play out that way. And the matchup portion of it plays a large part of it. And then, honestly, and we start talking about this at the beginning of the season, some of it comes down to just management of workload moving forward. And I think, throughout the game, you're going to start to hear that really come into play as we get into the, 70 and 80 game mark, because workload is going to be a challenge. And the workload challenge, if you talk to pitching guys, is not as much this year. It's worried about what's going to happen next year and injury and prevention of injury. And no one's got a crystal ball. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. And yeah, sometimes it is challenging when you're walking down and telling a guy at 75, hey, you're done. I think the one thing that we try to do with our group is we try to walk through and communicate, what our thought process is, not only for the guy on the mound that day, but for the other 4 guys and how it goes about it. And then the last thing that comes into play is the National League game. The National League game dictates, last night in a situation, Chad was coming out either way. So I don't want you to think he wasn't, but his spot came up and we scored because Phil hit in that spot. And that plays into it in a lot of factors also that makes the challenge of when you're making a pitching decision, if the pitcher's going to hit, where an American League game, you don't ever have to worry about that. You just have to worry about when you're taking the guy out. Sorry, long answer for simple question.
It was actually really good. I'm not complaining. Thank you for the explanation. There's good.
Yeah.
Shelty, we actually were talking about that when you brought in Phil, and we were saying I think you had a 6-1 lead at the time. Does last night teach you that there's no such thing as a safe lead, no matter how well you're playing or how poorly your opponent?
Yeah, last night was a good learning lesson. I think Mike's question last night was really good. And I think we've talked a lot about, I do a lot of self-reflecting on, managing the game and what we did. And I thought, we could get 9 outs before they got 10 runs, and took Colin out of the game to save him for today because of with the off day and managing, with his back. And it was almost a very interesting lesson. But yeah, I think every night you learn things.
Derek, we kind of got a sense of what the reward was yesterday, but don't have any specifics. Have you been involved in any or heard any discussions about specifics of what the losers will receive?
I had a general idea going into it. I don't know what you guys what information you guys got, and I will let the players disclose that. So I had a general idea when TA brought the game up to me the other day, but I do not know the specifics of it.
All good for Shelty? All right.
Still good, Mike?
Yeah, they got it fixed. They pulled out one of the high-lows out onto it, so it won't be blown away again.
Good. Thanks for the update.
You're taking a victory lap after your good question comments.
It's a good day for me, man. Good day.